Hello and welcome to Rapid Report, your go-to source for the most in-depth and hard-hitting news analysis from around the world. Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial and closely watched stories in recent years: the release of millions of Jeffrey Epstein-related documents by the Department of Justice. These documents include thousands of videos and images, some of which are extremely explicit, and they reveal shocking details about Epstein's network, the victims, and the alleged involvement of powerful men whose identities remain hidden behind redactions. But there's more than meets the eye. Federal judges and investigators have full access to unredacted files, which include potential accusations against high-profile figures, even some claims involving former President Donald Trump, though the DOJ warns some are unverified or sensationalized. Today, we'll break down what's publicly available, what remains hidden, and why this gap between what the public sees and what investigators see could have serious legal and political consequences. If you want to stay informed with detailed, unbiased, and timely analysis like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with friends and family so they too can understand the full story behind these shocking documents. You don't want to miss this. The United States Department of Justice, DOJ, has released millions of pages of documents connected to the late financier Jeffrey Epstein, including thousands of images and videos, as part of ongoing transparency efforts. However, the release has sparked immediate controversy due to serious redaction errors that inadvertently expose the identities of some victims while continuing to obscure the names of potentially powerful individuals. The revelations have intensified scrutiny of the justice system's handling of Epstein-related material and highlighted the gap between what investigators and judges can see versus what the public is permitted to access. Massive document release includes multimedia evidence. The latest batch of DOJ files comprises more than 2,000 videos and approximately 180,000 images, some of which require age verification due to explicit content. These materials were intended to shed light on Epstein's criminal network and the scope of alleged exploitation. Yet, the release has prompted debate over the timing, accessibility, and completeness of the information, with some experts suggesting that the public may be distracted by sensational headlines while more consequential developments unfold behind closed doors. According to analysts, the DOJ release demonstrates a significant step toward accountability, but also exposes the limitations of current disclosure practices. While victims' names were mistakenly revealed in the public versions, the identities of several high-profile men, allegedly implicated in the documents, remain shielded by redactions, raising questions about selective transparency. Federal judge forces DOJ to correct redaction errors. U.S. District Judge Richard Berman publicly criticized the DOJ for errors in the redaction process, describing them as serious and necessitating immediate correction. The mishandling of sensitive information led to a temporary removal of some documents after victim complaints, as reported by BBC News. Judge Berman went further by canceling a scheduled hearing, signaling his dissatisfaction with the department's handling of sensitive material. The mistakes made in this release cannot be overlooked, Berman said. Redactions are there to protect victims, not to create confusion or inadvertently shield powerful individuals. The judge's intervention underscores the tension between protecting victims' privacy and maintaining transparency about the full scope of Epstein's criminal network. Lawmakers examine unredacted files in secure settings. Two members of Congress, Representative Thomas Massey, RKY, and Representative Ro Khanna, DCA, have reviewed portions of the unredacted files in a secure DOJ reading room. Both lawmakers have expressed concern that the public version of the documents is incomplete and sanitized, with at least 6 powerful individuals shielded by the redaction process. Khanna and Massey suggest that one of these figures may be a high-ranking official in a foreign government. Their bipartisan agreement highlights that the issue transcends partisan politics. What the public sees is not necessarily what investigators see, Khanna said. There's a lot happening behind closed doors, and that material could have significant legal and political implications. Trump-related allegations and public confusion. Among the released files are claims involving former President Donald Trump, though DOJ officials caution that some of these allegations are untrue and sensationalist. Critics argue that the mixture of verified and unverified claims has muddied the public perception of the case. The release's creator, who has monitored the DOJ materials, argues that this ambiguity serves to distract the public while more serious matters are reviewed privately. While some accusations may never be proven or acted upon, the very existence of these claims in official documents, albeit redacted, creates potential risk for public figures named in the files. Observers note that even if the public never sees the unredacted material, federal judges and investigators can access it in criminal or civil proceedings, meaning the legal exposure is real. Legal and political implications of redactions. Redactions in the Epstein documents have sparked criticism for potentially shielding powerful perpetrators under the guise of victim protection. While privacy safeguards are essential, the selective concealment of high-profile individuals raises questions about accountability and institutional transparency. Public pressure, rather than systematic openness, appears to be driving corrections and disclosures, emphasizing that the DOJ is responding reactively rather than proactively. The divide between what is publicly available and what remains under judicial review creates a unique dynamic. Those named in unredacted documents face potential legal consequences without the public ever knowing the specifics. For former President Trump, as well as other influential figures, the situation is framed not as an imminent threat of incarceration, but as a latent legal danger, contingent on what investigators ultimately verify from the unredacted materials. Why the story continues. Millions of pages are still under review, and investigators continue to examine content that the public cannot access. Experts warn that verified accusations from these files could have major legal, political, and reputational consequences. The ongoing release and review process ensures that the Epstein saga remains a critical story for both American justice and the global discourse on accountability for powerful individuals. In the meantime, public attention remains divided. While sensational headlines about celebrity names attract views, the most consequential developments, legal strategies, court deliberations, and unredacted evidence occur behind closed doors. Analysts emphasize that the real story is not only the public release, but the continuing private review of evidence that could influence ongoing and future cases. The structural issues behind DOJ redactions. The Epstein document saga exposes a systemic tension within the justice system, balancing victim protection with public accountability. The redaction process, intended to safeguard survivors, has paradoxically created a scenario where victims' identities were temporarily exposed, while those of high-profile alleged perpetrators remain hidden. Critics argue that this illustrates a flawed system where the very mechanisms designed to protect justice are co-opted by institutional inertia or, potentially, political considerations. Redactions have become both a shield and a sword. On one hand, they prevent further trauma for survivors. On the other, they raise suspicions that influential figures, including politicians, celebrities, and foreign officials, can evade public scrutiny. This dichotomy suggests that transparency is often contingent on public pressure rather than institutional commitment. The DOJ's reactive rather than proactive approach signals that the agency may prioritize legal defensibility over the public's right to full disclosure. The role of public pressure in driving justice. One of the most striking aspects of the Epstein document releases is that public outcry, media attention, and advocacy groups appear to be the primary catalysts for corrections and disclosures. Judge Berman's intervention and the temporary removal of files underscore that institutional transparency alone may not ensure accountability. In this environment, The court of public opinion indirectly shapes legal process, highlighting an uneasy symbiosis between civic oversight and judicial action. This reliance on public pressure raised significant questions. How many cases potentially involving powerful individuals remain obscured because the public isn't actively watching? And how much confidence can citizens place in a justice system that sometimes requires external scrutiny to perform its core function? Legal risk in the shadows. While the public sees only heavily redacted documents, judges, prosecutors, and select investigators have access to unredacted files. This creates a shadow legal arena where the consequences of Epstein-related evidence unfold away from media coverage and public debate. The implications are significant. For political figures, names appearing in unredacted documents, even if unverified, carry a latent reputational risk. Legal exposure could lead to civil lawsuits, criminal investigations, or political fallout, even if the public never learns of the allegations. For foreign officials, as hinted by Congress members Massey and Connor, the potential involvement of high-ranking foreign individuals introduces diplomatic complications, especially if these officials are shielded from public scrutiny while evidence is examined behind closed doors. For investigators, access to complete evidence allows law enforcement to act decisively, but it also places immense responsibility on investigators to navigate sensitive political and social terrain without undue influence or leaks. The dichotomy between public and private knowledge magnifies both legal and political risks. For example, while the public sees Donald Trump-related allegations as ambiguous and sensationalized, investigators have the full context, meaning the potential for legal consequences is not eliminated, only delayed or obscured. The psychological and cultural impact. The public release of Epstein materials, even redacted, has cultural and psychological ramifications. Sensational claims dominate headlines, fostering outrage, speculation, and distrust in institutions. Meanwhile, the slow drip of additional disclosures may condition the public to accept uncertainty as the norm. Analysts argue that this creates a kind of societal desensitization. The more high-profile individuals appear shielded, the more public faith in accountability erodes. This gap between expectation and reality has geopolitical dimensions too. If foreign figures are implicated, selective redactions can strain international relations, complicate extradition requests, or influence intelligence cooperation. Thus, the Epstein files are not only a domestic legal issue, they also operate in the complex arena of international power dynamics. Strategic implications for key figures. For individuals named in the unredacted documents, the strategic implications are profound. 1. Preemptive legal measures. Attorneys may prepare defenses, influence timing of public disclosures, or seek protective legal motions based on potential allegations. 2. Political calculations. Public officials or prominent figures may adjust behavior, communications, or alliances in anticipation of eventual exposure or investigation. 3. Media management. Those implicated face a constant balancing act, managing narrative without inadvertently drawing attention to hidden material that could be used in court. In essence, while the public may perceive a static or sanitized release, the real consequences are unfolding dynamically behind the scenes, making the Epstein files a living, active instrument of both legal and political maneuvering. The ongoing unfolding. The story is far from over, with millions of pages still under review. Every newly corrected or released document has the potential to shift the landscape. The judicial system, investigative agencies, and even Congress operate in parallel to public perception. This dual-track reality, public partial visibility versus private full scrutiny, ensures that the Epstein saga remains a critical story, not only for those directly involved, but for the wider discourse on power, justice, and accountability. Experts suggest that the real story lies less in sensational headlines and more in the structural, procedural, and legal mechanisms that allow selective visibility. Until unredacted files are either fully acted upon or formally sealed, the risk, implications, and intrigue surrounding Epstein-related cases will continue to simmer, shaping public trust, political futures, and legal precedents alike. This story is far from over. Millions of pages are still under review behind closed doors. Judges continue to examine unredacted files, and the legal and political implications for those named, both in the United States and abroad, remain very real. Remember, while sensational headlines grab attention, the real developments are happening behind the scenes. These ongoing investigations could have far-reaching consequences, and as always, we'll keep you updated with every significant revelation. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to like, comment your thoughts, and share this video so more people understand the depth and seriousness of this story. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because at Rapid Report, we bring you the stories that matter, unfiltered, in-depth, and ready to inform you every single day. Stay alert, stay informed, and stay tuned, because the Epstein saga is far from over.